What is up, everybody? I'm George Mossey. Welcome to the George Mossey Show. It's a pop culture podcast. Say hello to my co-host, DeeDee Casteel and Heather C. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hi.
Good. How are you?
Good. So we've had a lot of technical difficulties trying to get started. So I want to jump in. So this is episode 3 of the podcast. It was a slow news week, but we still have some stuff we want to talk about with you guys. Hopefully you find it interesting. So I want to start off because we were watching The Masked Singer, and I know, DeeDee, you don't watch The Masked Singer, but it's on season 10, which is the same number of seasons as 90 Day Fiance, which is kind of shocking, right? Because The Masked Singer is way newer, but it comes on like 3 or 4 times a year. So it's much more frequent. And Tom Sandoval was actually recently voted off on Wednesday, and a lot of people were surprised that he was on the show. Not Heather, though. Heather knew right away when he got on stage as the diver that it was him, because she was like, oh, that's Tom Sandoval. And I was like, seriously? Can he sing? And I was like, so people really were criticizing him. And, you know, he's had a lot of negative press. He even said recently in an interview that he was almost suicidal at one point with all of the negativity around him. So we're going to talk about him being on the show. But first, I want to do something fun, because I know with 10 seasons, that means that there's been 10 winners, and there's been like almost 50 people on the show total. So I want to know, how many people can Heather C. name from the Masked Singer vault that have won the show, right? So there's 10 people. So I want to see how many people can you actually name, and see how many seasons that you really remember. Because when I was thinking about it, I was like, I don't remember who won the last season that we just watched. So I was like, Heather, let's play this game, and then we're gonna get into it. So tell me when you're ready, and fire off as many Masked Singer winners that you can remember.
Okay, but are you gonna fact check it so you know if I'm
Oh yeah, I
right?
got it
'Cause,
right
like,
here. I
I
got
know.
it right here. I got it right here.
Okay. I know I can name people that have been on the show, but it's like whether or not they actually won, that's another story. Okay. So this is in like no particular order. I want to say Nick Lachey won a season.
He did, as the piglet. You're right.
Are you okay? Okay. I got one, 9 more. Oh my gosh. Okay. Leanne Rhymes.
She did win. She was the sun. Her costume was the sun.
Okay. Okay. Wow. This is really hard. You would think that because it's been on for so many seasons that you would be like, oh, I can name all of them. But maybe because it's been so many seasons, you start tuning it out. So I don't know. For on the 10th, I got to come up with like 7 more. But this is hard.
All right, so I'm gonna give the answers off. So, because I know it's hard, right? Because I was thinking about it, and I was like, I can name like 3. Okay, so the first winner ever was T-Pain, and then Wayne Brady, Candy Burris, from the group Escape, and also the Real Housewives, Leanne Rhyme, and Nick Lachey. You got those right in order. Those were the order that they won in. And then Jewel. Do you remember when Jewel was on the show? She was the Queen of Hearts, and then Tiana Taylor. Yeah, and then Tiana Taylor won. Amber Riley from Glee, she won. I don't even remember this. And then
I do when you said that, yeah.
Yeah, last season was Bishop Briggs. She won the season. So this is all 10 winners. It's crazy because it says that the show premiered in February of 2019. We have 10 winners. We're about to get 11 winners because the new season has already started. And so let's talk about the idea of Tom Sandoval being on the show. How do you feel seeing him on the show? Because I know you're a very big Vanderpump Rules fan. How do you feel seeing him on The Masked Singer? Do you feel like it's too soon for him to be doing things, or do you think that cancel culture is ridiculous and he should just be able to move forward?
I think that Tom has a good manager and PR rep on his team. What better way to dive right in and, ride the fame wave than when there's a good, juicy scandal, especially when he's part of it. I think that a lot of the Vanderpump fans were probably wondering, like, how is he going to come back from this? Like, I found out about this show because of his scandal. Like, I never really watched The Real Housewives. I never, watched Vanderpump Rules. And because of that, I was like, oh, I want to see what this is about. And I binged every single season, episode after episode, and I was like, oh my God, like, I love it. Like, I was like hooked. And, seeing that he was with Ariana for so many years and that he could just like betray her and like just cheat on her the way he did. I mean, if people paid attention to the red flags, it was kind of like in their face the whole time because he had like a history of cheating, but like the girls were so blinded by him that they're like, no, he wouldn't do that to me, So it was in their face the whole time, basically. But I think that like with him, because he also, on top of The Masked Singer, he's also on that other show where they go through like that boot camp.
Oh my God, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he's on that show too. And I think that the point of getting him back out there doing stuff while it's still fresh, because Ariana is actually on Dancing with the Stars and she's doing phenomenal on there. I think that they want to kind of like put him in another light. So they're like, either he can be loved as the villain or, people can just kind of like get over it and just like him again as the person that he is and as the character or whatever that he's portrayed to be, even though it's supposed to be reality, but they always end up being characters to me. So, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not bothered by it. I think that his actions and his love life doesn't have to define his personality, but I think he's going to bank on being the villain.
So are you team Tom or team Ariana? I hate to put you on the spot, and I know I hate to divide it, but do you forgive Tom? Do you feel like what he did was wrong? Like, how do you feel? Do you want him to pay for what he did? Because it seems like a lot of the fans, they just want him to be punished for what he did. So where do you stand? Do you feel like their relationship ended, and if it wasn't on TV, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal? Or do you feel like he's a bad guy?
I am team Ariana. I love her. But I am not upset with Sandoval. I believe that by this evening, it actually benefited Ariana in the long was able to actually grow and find herself comfort level, and she started exploring things. Like, she always wanted to like explore more and do more with being a bartender, and she wanted to like do more books. And her first book ever, he inserted himself in it, so like he's in the book, he's on the cover, and it was supposed to be just her. So like now she has like a new one coming out, it's solely just her. I think it's called like Single AF, and it's got her. She looks phenomenal. She's doing, like I said, Dancing with the Stars. She actually moved on, she has a new man. So I think that by this happening, there was like some amazingness at the end of the tunnel, that she was able to grow and find herself. So it was like, you want to be like, I hate you, but then you also want to be like, well, thanks, Tom, because, she was able to find the best Ariana that she could be. So no, I don't hold a grudge against Tom, because I found him out when he hurt all the other girls that he dated before her. He has a pattern, but he's good looking, so women have a tendency of looking past that. So I'm looking forward to the new season. I know that they just finished wrapping up not that long ago, so I have to do podcasts and let you know about what's going on with that.
So you brought up Dancing with the Stars. So Jamie Lynn Spears was on there, and if you blinked, you missed it, right? Like, she was on there. I remember the TMZ stories saying that she was on there, and their Britney fans were like, get her off the show, we can't stand her. So I want to know where you stand on that, because I know Britney is your favorite person, or she was your favorite person. Jamie Lynn Spears is her little sister. She had that show Zoe 101. It relaunched recently. And there's been a lot of issues between Brittany and Jamie Lynn. Well, shit, Brittany and her whole family, but especially Jamie Lynn, right? And I know that Brittany's fans have something to do with the fact that she only lasted on the show like a week or two or whatever. I know that her fans have something to do with that, because I can't say that she was on the show and she did bad, because I don't watch the show. So how do you feel? Do you feel like she like blackballed by the fans?
Oh, definitely. She's definitely blackballed by the fans. I think that whatever she has done to Brittany, is horrible. Her and Brittany were always so close, when she was growing up. And it sucks that her and her family are in such a horrible place. I hope that, they can finally heal one day, I actually saw Jamie Lynn's performance. I don't think she did bad. I don't think that she should have to permanently suffer, because in the end result, she's a human being as well. And she should get voted solely on her performance, not by her personal life and what she has done. So I have like mutual feelings, but it's mostly coming from like just being a human being. I think like you should just be fair to others. Just two wrongs don't make a right. You know what I mean?
I think that the fans have made it impossible to do anything, which I get it. They're treated Brittany or whatever, but I do feel fair to. I feel like she got voted off the show just because she's the sister who Brittany happens to dislike at the moment. And I don't know. It doesn't seem fair. Like, we have to give everyone a fair shot, and we have to learn that, we can't judge people for one thing that they did in their whole life. If she went on the show, she did a good job. She should have had a fair chance. And I feel like she definitely wasn't given a fair chance. And DeeDee, I don't know if you watch Dancing with the Stars. Are you familiar with the show, or do you watch it at all?
I've watched it a couple of times. But I do know a little bit about the Britney Spears and her little sister story. From what I've heard in the social media is that, she's always tried to take the spotlight away from Britney, especially when Britney started spiraling downward. And now that, she's actually being called out on what she's tried to do or is trying to do, it's backfired on her. Because nobody can take Britney Spears' place. Come on. It's Britney Spears.
Yeah. There's one Britney Spears, and it's undeniable, it's her. But I definitely feel like this saga. Oh, so Heather, what do you think about this book? Because Britney's putting out a book, right? Is she gonna tell us the situations between her family, like in depth? Like, do you know what's going to be in the book? Because a lot of people want to know what her family did to her that was so wrong, because we know that they were using her for money. Is she going to tell us like in depth?
I know that she said that she was going to tell her side of the story, minus the divorce that just recently happened. I'm just wondering, and I think that the book is supposed to be like her memoir. I think it's supposed to be everything minus the divorce that just recently happened. I think that a lot of people are skeptical of how much of it is going to be her words and how much of it maybe is going to still be kept under wraps, or maybe in other people's words. She has been promoting it, but a lot of people still think that she's not running her social media account. There's like so many conspiracies about Britney. It is ridiculous. People think that the videos that she posts online are not like her, that they have like this footage and that they put it out there so that way the fans are confused and think that, that's Britney or whatever. Like, it's just ridiculous. It goes on and on and on about how many like conspiracies are out about this poor girl. It's just like, I'm tired for her. I really am. But I'm eager to read it. I know that you can pre-order it right now, so I think I'm gonna put in my pre-order on Amazon so that way I can get it, because I want to read it. And I do have Jamie Lynn's, and but I found it at the Dollar Tree, so that's that's no shade. That's honest truth. I guess You know, a good read for $1.25. You can't beat that. You know, to see like what, you know, her problems and struggles are. The amount of time I've read Jamie Lynn's book, she basically talked about her daughter's near-death experience that she had and how she grew from that. So, and everything she mentioned about Britney was positive. So it's how she
Interesting.
just wants to be liked. Yeah.
Well, I think the book is gonna do well because everybody has been waiting to hear from Britney because she's everywhere. She's on social media. She posts all the time, but she never tells anybody what's going on. And I think the book is definitely what the fans want because the fans want to picture a mirror into her life. And she's super private. It's like she went from being everywhere as a teenager and a young adult to she posts whatever she wants to post, but no, you know, for the fans want more, fans need more. So this book might be their way to get a little bit more insight into what's going on with her in her life because it's just been so much drama and craziness. Like she's the only person, well, not the only, one of the only people who cannot put out one new song and still be the topic of every news story and every magazine and every TV show and Entertainment Tonight. Like there's the Britney saga could be a 10-part series, you know, with 10 seasons. Like there's just so much craziness and we're all wanting to know. We all want to know what's going on with her. So let's move on to this Drake and Joe Budden thing because I know Drake put out a new album, right? What was the name of that album? Like All the Kings or something like that? He put out an album, and Joe Budden, who is a retired rapper, he has a podcast. He was also on Love and Hip Hop with his wife, Chrissy. Isn't his wife Chrissy? Am I right? I believe it's Chrissy, right?
Chrissy was with not Joel Santana, but his friend.
Oh, okay, so I got it wrong. But he was on Joe Budden was on Love and Hip Hop too.
Yes, he was on Love and Hip Hop.
Hip Hop. He was a rapper. He had a few songs. I don't want to say a few might be being generous. A couple of songs back in the day, and he has a podcast now. And he said some negative things about Drake and his contribution into hip hop and music. And Drake fired back with a essay calling him a failure, saying that he was a grown man who gave up on his dreams. He gave up on hip hop. It was a very, very harsh essay, and I want to get everybody's thoughts on that. Is it okay to call someone a failure? Is it okay to say like, oh well, you're terrible at what you do because you didn't work hard enough, you didn't try hard enough, you gave up? Like, even if the statements are true, coming from Drake, that's very, very harsh because everybody's gonna read it. Like, you know how somebody might tweet about you, they might not have a whole bunch of followers, everybody's not gonna hear the negative thoughts that you have towards them. So like, how do we feel about Drake calling Joe Budden now on such a large scale? Because I don't know how many followers Drake has on Instagram, but it's way more than anybody else, right? So everybody read this, and I was just like, how do we feel about that? Is it okay to bully people when you're that famous? You know, like, how do we feel?
It's not okay to bully anybody. I don't care if you're famous or not. It's not okay to bully anybody. And just because someone didn't make it like you did doesn't mean that they're a failure.
But see, that's not the whole story, George. It's like, it's not about he just picked Joe Budden in a lineup and started bullying him. Drake was firing back at comments that Joe Budden made on his podcast. Yeah. So that was Drake's retaliation. So it's like, you can't make it sound like Drake woke up one day and was like, hey, you know that one failed rapper, Joe Budden, I'm about to go off on him. It didn't happen like that. Was the way that Drake handled it right or wrong? I think for a rapper, it probably was right because growing up in the 90s, rappers' retaliation was shooting each other. So the fact that he wrote a paragraph on Instagram is probably like the classiest way a rapper can handle it. I don't think that it was so much as bullying as him being like, you talk about me, I'm talking about you, which is the two rights, don't make a, two wrongs don't make a right situation. Like I said about, the Britney thing, but I think that's just how they handled it. So it to me, it wasn't bullying. It was just his retaliation.
I mean, but as someone in Drake's stature and where he is in the industry, a retaliation can be, very serious from him. Like, first of all, to get noticed by Drake at all, that's a lot, right? For him to even acknowledge you. Because let's be honest, Joe Budden's podcast, in comparison to what Drake does and who Drake is and his music, how did he even get Drake's attention? But it's interesting because Joe Budden has said a lot of things about people on his podcast that has gotten a lot of reactions. Now that I look back at it, I think that might be something that Joe Budden is banking on by saying things to people or about people to get a response. And then these people who are much more famous in the moment are giving him a little bit of attention, because now a lot of people who didn't listen to his podcast, like, we went back and we wanted to hear what the comments were. So it could be like, oh, well, I'm going to use this person's fame. So I'm going to attack them on my podcast and then have this person retaliate. And then I'm going to start like this feud with this massive celebrity.
I think that you, out of all people, should know, because you do podcasting for a living and you gain a lot of attention from followers as well as people that are on these shows that you watch. They have a tendency of listening a little closer to the people that have an opinion, that have followers. Just like even with Machine Gun Kelly, like, there were so many people that do radio shows, podcasts, whatever, and he will go and he will like literally write songs about what they had said, and he feels like he has something to prove to these critics versus the people that actually buy his music. So, and you had a situation yourself, whether, I don't know if we could talk about it or not, but you had a person that was out there that didn't necessarily like everything that they thought that you said or did, and they were trying to come for you too. She supposedly had a following and a fan base and everything. And I'm talking about Kara. I'm talking about Usman's brief ex, if you want to call it that. I call it just like a limelight whore, but that's just me. I can say what I want because I'm not a podcast person. I just think that I don't know what it is. I don't know why these people care so much about one's opinion. The only thing I can think of is that because there is a following, maybe they think that you can persuade others by your following fan base.
Yeah.
So maybe Drake thinks that Joe Budden's fan base is suddenly going to overshadow Drake's millions of followers. I don't know.
Yeah, I do know that. And it's funny you brought up MGK, Machine Gun Kelly. I remember back in the day, he and I had like some feuds, and I used to pick on him. Back in the day, I used to tweet him and say things to him that he didn't like. And I do remember I told him that he would never sell out the Q. This was a big stadium back in Cleveland. And he was like, oh, I would totally sell it out. And then he actually did. And then he tweeted at me that he sold it out. Yeah, and it's like so interesting because back then, who was I? Who was I to say anything to him to piss him off? Because he was doing.
There's me. I was literally 2 inches from you on the couch when you sent that tweet, who is like a huge fan that has him tattooed on my arm, and he would not pay me no attention. But yet you said one thing to him, and not only did he come for you, he blocked you. So that's what I'm saying. I don't understand. I don't understand. You ignore the people who love and support you and buy your music and you go to your concerts, but you give all your time and attention to the rude people that hate you. Like, make it make sense, people. Make it make sense.
It doesn't. It's like people really do like to feud with other people, and it really is a waste of time. I know. It's like you should focus on moving forward and positivity. Okay, so I want to talk about Olivia Rodrigo because she just put out a new album called Guts, and this album, it's the follow-up to her album Sour. And it has unprecedented success. Like anything that Olivia Rodrigo puts out is just successful. So I want to get into it because Olivia Rodrigo puts out really personal music, right? Like she talks about personal relationship struggles, intimate details of how she was treated, how the people that she dated did her. And I don't know who this album is about. I know she dated Joshua Bassett from the High School Musical, the series back in the day. This could possibly be about someone else. She never really gives any information on who these people are. But like, why do you think that she connects so well with her listeners, especially female listeners? Like when women hear these songs, it's like anthem for women and to cope through bad situations. And it's like, why do you think her music is doing so well? Because we have artists like Taylor Swift. She puts out music, but she never gives us the intimate details of relationships and things. She mostly just bashes, people or situations. But I feel like Olivia Rodrigo puts out a more personal style. Like the lyrics are so personal. It's almost like this is something that she would tell her best friend. She's telling me. And I just want to get your thoughts on her new album, because I know you've listened to it. I've heard a lot off of it. What are your thoughts on it?
I love her. She's one of my favorite artists, and I really want to go see her when she comes to town. I think a lot of people like her because she has and she would probably hate this because I don't think she's a fan of her anymore, but she actually used to be Taylor Swift's biggest fan. And then when they happened to work together, things went south and she feels differently. But I think she has the same type of kick to her, like the I've been hurt, F you type of thing. And, I think that a lot of people can relate to it because you put your pain and your feelings into music. So there's a lot of relatable lyrics. And she's just young, she's fun, she kind of just is there, talented. But I think that her album is really good. I liked Sour too. I thought that one was good too. So okay. I don't know. This album wasn't about the guy from High School Musical. She's had another relationship since then. Oh. She dated an older guy. Yeah, he was older. I think he was like a director maybe. That didn't go so well either. So that this could have something to do with him. Some of it might have to do with Taylor Swift.
So the Taylor Swift and Olivia Rodrigo feud, I've heard about it a lot. And what do you think about really powerful female artists that can't get along? Because I know Taylor Swift said years ago, she said that men have been pitting women against each other instead of letting women empower each other. So the fact that Taylor and Olivia, who are very, very powerful in the industry, can't seem to get along, how do you guys feel about that? Because I feel like it's very important for women to support each other, because sometimes they call this a man's world. The industry can be a man's industry, driven by men. The things that happen in the industry are driven by men. So I feel like women should be pull it together.
Well, I think whenever you're an artist, I don't care whether it's a music, you're a comedian or what have you. When I think you're an artist and you can touch people on a different level than, any other artist, because you actually sing or talk about your life, and you can reach people on a different level. So when you can reach people on a different level, of course, they're gonna know, okay, wow, this artist, even though they're famous, they actually get it. And I think with women, the artists that are women, instead of going against each other, they need to support each other, because men too, but women go through more hardships than men do. And for one woman artist to bash another artist because they're putting their life story out there, they're actually singing or talking about their true life, things that really happened, to get bashed by another one, that's bad. And so if you want the same reaction, then maybe you need to be more genuine in what you do and not be so fake.
Some people say that Taylor Swift has become friends with whoever is hot at the moment. Like whenever you watch an award show, they famously put Taylor Swift to sit next to whoever's going to bring home the most awards. I don't know if that's true or not. These are just rumors that I've seen online. I don't know anything about that. I don't know how Taylor meets people and who her close friends are, but people are like, well, she's always really close with whoever is hot in the industry at that moment. And a lot of people look at it in different ways. They're like, well, she's the biggest artist in the industry. She should attach to the newer artists, especially the younger female artists, so she could mentor them. But a lot of people say that's not what she's doing. So what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts? Because she's been really close to Billie Eilish. She was close with Selena Gomez at one point. Whoever was hot at that moment, we've seen her with them. And then after a while, we've noticed we don't see her with that person anymore. So what are our thoughts on befriending someone? And it might be a situation of convenience.
I think Taylor Swift with other huge artists, they try to, especially when you're new in the public eye, they try to act like they want to be your friend because they want to intimidate you. They want you to feel like, you're not going to be able to make it to the level that they are. It's more of a, wow, I'm better than you. I'll always be better than you kind of situation. And then, once they get their point across, then they move on to the next victim.
Taylor, she's still friends with a lot of the people that you had mentioned. Selena Gomez is her best friend. So I know that every time if she had a concert, Selena would attend, even if it was just in the audience. And at the award show, they weren't sitting next to each other, but they were kind of by each other, and she still clapped and said, that's my friend, and pointed at her and stuff. She was sitting with the rapper Ice Spice at the VMAs, and she actually did a collaboration with her. She remixed one of her songs, and Ice Spice was on it. So I think that maybe she was sitting with her just to kind of maybe just to promote it, oh, they did a song together, just maybe introduce the rap fans to Taylor Swift and vice versa. Could be the record labels doing. But I mean, who knows why they do, what they do. I mean, a lot of it is probably because of the popularity. A lot of it could be for intimidation purposes. I think what you were saying about the females and all that, I think that because a lot of females, not all, but a lot, they do have a lot of different things that they think in their head. They doubt themselves, their self-worth. Everything is the competition. So I think that unfortunately women pin women against themselves because of insecurities and jealousy and stuff like that. It's they don't want them to do great because they feel like this person can't do better than me because then I won't be able to shine. And it's a sad world that we live in, because technically there is a lot. Technically, there's a lot that could be done. There's a spot for everyone if we'd allow it, but it could never get to that because people can't seem to look past their own insecurities in life to let everybody shine, which is sad.
You remember the artist Lorde? I remember her and Lorde were really close at one point, and Lorde kind of disappeared, right? I think the last season of The Masked Singer, we thought Bishop Briggs was Lorde. Because they sounded alike, but Lorde has kind of disappeared from the public eye, and she was really, really close with Taylor Swift. Do you think that they're still friends? Do you think they still talk, or do you think Lorde just went back to her country of origin? And she's, because a lot of times we get these new artists and they're from other countries, and they come over to the U.S. To share their music with us, but their lives are not here. Their lives are back in their prospective countries. So a lot of people are like, well, what happened to all of these people that we saw her and they were really close with, and now they've disappeared? Or do you think that just because we don't see them together, that they're not still friends? Do you think that is that how it is?
I don't think it has anything to do with whether or not they're friends. It could be whether or not they're in the public eye. If she's not seen with Lorde, doesn't mean they don't still talk on the phone to each other. She might just be back in her original country and, you know, doing something there.
I mean, I agree, because I'm friends with people that are, you know, popular and famous, you know, and I don't always hang around them, but just because I don't hang around them don't mean we're not friends. So I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people, when again, Taylor Swift is the biggest artist in the world, I think a lot of times people are always looking for something negative to say about someone. So they're like, oh, well, she's a fake friend, and she'll be friends with someone at one point and then not be friends with them at another point. And I think it's over criticism of artists when you become that big and that famous. You can't really do anything. It's the damned if you do, damned if you don't situation with you. It's like you do something good, that's great. You do something bad, that's terrible, and then everything is elevated. So I definitely feel like in her position, like I think her tour in itself, up there with Beyonce's, are like the most successful tours that have ever happened. Like she's making strides in the music industry that no one has ever dreamed of doing. And then she's really generous. She gave like a large amount of money to the truck drivers, the people who were making the tour happen, that were on the road, moving all of her insanely large items and stage stuff around. She gave them like $50,000 bonuses on top of what they were already making. Right. So, I wanted to touch on the thing that Drake said. He said that he was going to take a hiatus from music, and he had just put out an album, and he's going to take a hiatus from music. What do you guys think about artists taking hiatus? Because I was like, what if someone like Taylor Swift said she was going to take a hiatus from music? I feel like the industry would go crazy, right? I feel like people would freak out. So, like, how do you guys feel about Drake saying that he's going to take a break from music? Is that okay? If you're that big, is it okay for you to say you're done with music for a while, or do you have to keep making music? You know, like some artists, they just keep putting out music, keep putting out music, keep putting out music. Is it okay for them to take a break? And are the fans just supposed to just wait around, or what's the situation with that? How do you feel?
I don't care how famous you are or how big you are. You have to take time to, especially for your mental health. You have to take time for yourself, because if you're always giving, going on tours, you're not resting, you're not doing what you need to do. So what if you're that famous? At the end of the day, I mean, you're not gonna be able to give the performance that you need to give, because you didn't burn yourself out so much because you haven't taken that time. And I think it said that he was going to take like a year break. I mean, so what if it's a year break? When he comes back, it's going to be like he never left anyway, because he's real famous. So, I mean, if Taylor Swift were to take about a year break, when she came back, she would still be Taylor Swift. If Beyonce were to, if she came back, she would still be Beyonce. There's just some people that nobody can take their place, but they still need that time to take care of their health, their mental health. It's a lot of, when you're doing a lot of traveling, you're around so many people, you're doing a lot of tours, you can't actually take time for yourself. And after a while, your mental health starts going bad. Your whole physical health starts going bad. So kudos. If you can take a year off and afford to take a year off, heck yeah, do it.
Well, I forgot to say that he dropped the album first, and then announced it. So he gave them music to listen to while he's doing it.
Like DeeDee was saying, if you've already established yourself in the game and made a name for yourself, there's people like Britney Spears that haven't dropped a song since an actual album since 2016. She's still Britney Spears. You know what I mean? Like, you can take a hiatus and people will still know who you are. It's probably not smart for people that are brand new that have one song out, that people might not know who you are when you come back. But yeah, I mean, if you need it for family time, yourself, your mental health, you definitely should take some time off. Everybody deserves to have that break to breathe. And lately, this is just, it's my opinion, but I've heard a lot out there. The last couple of albums that Drake has actually dropped have not been good, and they haven't even really produced much singles. So it's probably best if he does take a break. That way he can take some time, maybe like reinvent his sound, reinvent himself, come up with some new stuff, new material. Because if his heart and his head isn't in it, he's not going to be producing good stuff, and people are not going to be listening to it anyways. I love Drake. He was always one of my favorite artists, and I couldn't even tell you the name of the last 3 albums he put out because they were rushed. They didn't even make it to the shelves. It went straight to digital, and you know, it's just, yeah. So he needs it. He needs this time. The one that he just put out has like 23 songs. I got through like the first 5 before I got bored and turned it off.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's how you can tell that your mental health is not where it needs to be.
Do you think that these artists feel pressure to stay relevant by putting out music constantly? Do you feel like they feel like if they do take a break that something is going to happen and they're going to lose their spot? You ever heard an artist say, "I'm back to claim my spot, I'm back to claim my crown"? I think a lot of artists are under the impression if they take a break, they're forfeiting their spot in the industry or on the billboards or on the charts. And I think that that's a really bad situation for people with mental health, because they're like, oh, well, if I take a break, if I go on vacation, if I don't put out an album, my spot's going to go to someone else. And I think a lot of artists are like under that pressure of, well, I can't take a break because if I do, they'll forget about me. You know, and somebody will get my crown and they'll put my crown on their head, and then I won't be able to come back and get that spot. I'm gonna have to fight someone for it. And I think a lot of artists, I hear them say things like that, and it's a bad situation for people. Like Heather said, when you're making music and you're just putting out albums, it's not really gonna help your career, because there's a lot of artists who have been making music, like for instance, Backstreet Boys. They've been making music for, I don't know, pushing 25 years, probably, if not longer. And they've been putting out new songs and new albums that haven't done anywhere near as good as their classic, iconic, legendary albums. And I think just to put music out to put out isn't helping your career, and it's not helping you stay true to who you are. There's like a very overwhelming pressure. I know Taylor Swift has to feel pressure because every time she puts out music, it takes over the world. So I know there's a lot of pressure for her to keep putting out music, especially Olivia Rodrigo as well. So many people are looking to her for anthems. And I can't imagine what the pressure is like on a person, knowing like, well, I need to make music that tops what I did the last time. And sometimes that takes a toll on your mental health, because you can't just put the words on the paper and say it how you want to say it. It has to outdo what you've done. And you set the bar so high, that's a lot of pressure to try to outdo what you've done the last time. I think Eminem wrote it in one of his songs. He's like, am I ever going to be able to live up to what people expect of me? And I can't imagine what that pressure is like on artists, because they're supposed to write music, record music, tour, do meet and greet, manage social media, deal with fans, deal with haters. They're supposed to do it all on a regular basis and still put out massive hits all at the same time. I can't imagine what type of pressure that is.
Well, not even with just the music artist, it's with everyone, you know, that is in the public eye. You know, the singers, the comedians, the actors, the actresses, podcasters. I mean, it's like you have to like really put yourself out there and hope, you know, that someone actually acknowledges that you are really trying to make the best of make the best of whatever it is you're doing. But at the same time, you try to be your normal self. People don't want to see your normal self. They want to see a whole different side of you. They want to see something totally different. And so whenever you go and try to, you know, just change it just a little bit, that's when you start getting bashed. That's when you start getting, you know, all these negative comments or attacks, because all you want to do is just be yourself. But when you have so many fans and people expect only certain things from you, it's hard. You know, like me and you, George, we're podcasters. So it's like we have to, sometimes we try our best to be ourselves, but not everybody wants us to be ourselves. Everybody wants to see a whole different side of us. And we're like, but I mean, do we really want to do that? But I mean, but it's, so it can be overwhelming. It can really be overwhelming because, you know, like on the next podcast, we're like, okay, well, we need to do better than last time. If not, our followers are going to leave us, or, you know, we're not going to be popular, or there's going to be some kind of attack, some kind of negativity. And we don't have as many followers as these famous people. So you can imagine they get it even more than what me and you are getting it.
I don't envy them. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, you have a 50 million followers. I wish I was you. I don't envy people who deal with those type of pressures, like Drake, Taylor Swift, Olivia Rodrigo, all of these people who have to deal with, because it's a blessing and a curse, you know, because I think, Heather, you've pointed it out to me many times how people's fans are also their enemies. Like, they love you at one point.
Very true statement. That is a very true statement. Because you have all these fans, and then for no reason at all, they turn against you.
Just one thing. You say literally one thing, and they completely turn against you. And these are the people who follow them and support them, buy their music. It's like the expectation of who you are and what to live up to is almost, it's like you're living. You can't show your truth of who you are, like you were saying, because sometimes they don't like who you are. They don't like your personal opinion. They don't like your personal beliefs. They like who you are in the music, or who you are in the movies, and then you become a character that you create a character in your own life, and you're supposed to be that character and turn on that character when you go out in public. It has to be exhausting, because I know a lot of celebrities have personal beliefs that they don't want us to know because we won't like them. You know, they might have political beliefs, might have religious beliefs, and then they have to pretend like they don't because they need to live up to who we want them to be, who we want, or who we perceive them to be, which is really hard. Oh, Heather, I want you to talk about this Welcome to Plathville show, because you brought this up to me about this family, and they were living a different type of lifestyle, right? I think the kids didn't have the internet, or the kids didn't have a computer. Like, tell me a little background on this, because you were telling me this, and it was kind of interesting to me. DeeDee, I don't know if you watched this show.
I do. I mean, I watched last season, but I haven't had time to really sit down and watch this season. But yeah, I do know it fell apart, though.
Yeah. So, Heather, give me a little background first, because I don't really know a whole lot about it, and then let's dive in.
Okay, so I wanted to watch the season, so I wanted to start from the very beginning. I wanted to get a background and understanding, because I was not really sure. I always hear like the background noise of the commercials, like, you know, when you're watching like 90 Day Fiance or whatever, and they're like, oh, welcome to Plathville. And I didn't really know what the show was about. I was like, were they religious? Were they Amish? Like, I didn't know. So I tried to watch like the first season, the first episode, and it didn't really catch my interest because I felt like they kind of just like dived into their lives. They didn't give like a background or anything. But I'm like, you know what, let me give it a chance. And I started watching it, and it's really short. You know, if you watch it on Max, there's no commercials, so it's like 40 minutes long. And I want to say like most of the seasons, there's only 5. They're on season 5 right now. There's only like 8, 9, 10, no more than maybe like 12 episodes. So they're really easy to get through. But anywho, so basically they were a family, and they were really kind of like religious, but like more so the dad than the mom. I didn't really get to understand much of like why she was so strict until she started talking about her past life and experience and everything. Apparently, like, she lost her mom, and like she was really close with her, but her mom didn't do like maybe the best she could growing up, so she wanted to like kind of learn and do like the opposite. She was like, no, I want to be a better mom to my kids, and what she thought she was doing was giving them the best life and the best, like, you know, whatever. She thought she was protecting them, but in actuality, she was probably making matters worse. Like, she homeschooled all her children, which is fine. I mean, I feel like you could probably get the same type of education if you're homeschooled or go to public school, private school, whatever. But they weren't like finishing it through. Like, none of them had like an actual diploma. like GED or diploma or anything to show for it. So they kind of always felt like they were behind. They didn't have, like, they had a TV, but it was like more of like an old school TV, which they didn't really like watch. They weren't allowed to have sugar, so if they wanted to like sweeten something up, they had to use like maple syrup or something like that. And I'm like, I can imagine like making something where you need to have sugar as an ingredient and you're substituting it with like something like has a completely different taste to it. And like they weren't allowed to show their bodies, and very modest wear. So there was 9 children, I believe. And like Kim, she's the mother. She just really like strict with her kids. But the thing is that once they turned 18, they could do whatever they want. Like they could like move out, they could dress however they want, they could do whatever. They had like a family band. They listened to like only like classical type of music, or maybe some like religious music. So like they didn't know who like Justin Bieber or any of them are. So their oldest son, Ethan, he basically got married to this girl who had like the same type of faith, and she gave up kind of like on her religion, and she was just like, I just want to live like a normal life, I want to like experience life. And she kind of introduced him to like the world, and she's like, this is your first time having like Coca-Cola, and this is your first time having an alcoholic beverage and stuff. And he actually separated himself from his parents because they did not like his wife, because they're like, okay, you're like corrupting and whatever. And they didn't like, if he wanted to see his siblings, they had to be supervised, because she thought that like he was going to like feed all this stuff to them and like make the little kids turn against the parents and everything. So my thing is, now that we're in season 5, after raising so many children the way she did, she still had like 4 children left at home that weren't of the age of 18 yet. She decided that she was no longer interested in her marriage, that she felt like it was kind of like a loveless marriage. There was no intimacy. She just felt like she was very alone. She started letting the children listen to whatever they want. She, let them, like they were eating ice cream in one of the scenes. Just kind of like be like normal children and like, whatever. I think that, I don't know how I feel. Like, I don't know how I feel. Like, obviously, when you become a parent, you learn as you go. You know that you want the best for your child. You know that you want them to be better than you were. You know that you want them to be safe and successful and loved and all that good stuff. But it's like there's not really a set handbook on how to be a parent. You just kind of learn as you go. But in my opinion, is it really fair that you use your children as kind of like the guinea pig phases of life, where you're like, I'm going to do this, that, and the other? So clearly she kind of messed them up, because none of them really had knowledge of anything. A lot of them didn't get a good solid education, so they had to go back and either get their GED or whatever. They weren't allowed to experience a lot of the same things that other children were. And then when you decide in your life that you want to make a change, you kind of change up your parenting for the younger ones. Is that fair to your older children? Or is it like 2 separate situations? Like, I don't know. Like, watching this show, it left me with so many mixed emotions that I told George, I was like, we have to talk about this, because I was like, even if you don't watch this show, it's just a generalized thing for like parenting and like basically like obviously there's not always right and wrong. Everybody's going to be different. Everybody's going to parent different. But since it's the same family and you're so strict, you basically went against everything that you taught and what your beliefs were, and you just changed it, especially to these younger children. It's like, is this fair? Is this not fair? You know what I mean? Like, I just kind of was like, to get an opinion from other people on what they thought.
Well, I think, you know, parenting, being a parent, you know, like you said, Heather, you're always learning. You never really actually know how to be a parent. But I think, you know, the seasons that I've watched, you know, a lot of these women and men, you know, they get into these religions and they think that with them being raised like that, they think that is the only way to raise their children. But in reality, we've all seen, you know, is all it does whenever the children get to a certain age, they start getting rebellious. They want to go and do things that even though you taught them it's not right, but when they get to a certain age, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I wasn't allowed to do this. And, you know, then they start telling their younger siblings, oh my gosh, you know, like the ice cream. Oh my gosh, the ice cream is so good. Here, try it. You know, or, oh my gosh, this soda or potato chips, you know, like the Amish, you know, how they are raised, you know, everything that they go through. Once they get out into what they call, you know, the wicked world, their whole perspective changes because, you know, how they live isn't exactly how, you know, what we would call normal people live, you know. Not saying that Amish isn't normal. I'm not saying that. But, you know, like people like me looking into an Amish, you know, I don't think I could ever live like that because to me, that's not a normal lifestyle per se.
From what I've parents made the kids' lives really strict, which I kind of was raised the same way. Like my life was pretty strict, but then at 18, you know, I did my own thing. I moved out. I decided to move forward. But I think that it's kind of the parents' job to make sure that the children are raised right. And I feel like in this world, the kids that aren't raised, they kind of are ones that have the most issues. And I feel like, I don't know, I was raised strict. I don't know what it was like to not be raised strict. I feel like you question doing things and when your friends bring up something to you to do, well, I don't think I would do that, you know, because you were raised in a strict way. So you have better decision making. You know, your parents would be upset. A lot of times when I was younger, I didn't do things that my friends were doing because I was scared of how mad my mother would be if she knew that I did it. Not that I didn't want to do it. It was more so like she would be so angry if she found out that I did it. So more of like a fear for me. So hearing this story and hearing the way that the mom raised the kids and the kids, they're all kind of doing their own thing because one of the girls is putting out music. One of the kids is like a model. So they're all doing, you know, normal things. I don't know normal because I guess being a singer or a model isn't normal, but they've taken on to life, you know, pretty well. But I do feel like taking away their right to explore life on their own as a child, causing them, you know, when they do get to move into the real world, it's like that overwhelming feeling of all the different things that you can experience. You kind of don't know your direction because now you're experiencing all this new stuff. You're like, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to work a job? Do I want to be a model? Do I want to sing? Do I want to? They're hit with all. I think that makes it really difficult someone entering the real world because they don't really know what they like because they weren't really allowed to experience anything. So I don't know. I've heard a lot about this show, and I do feel like it kind of reminds me of a lot of my upbringing. So it might be a show that I'm gonna have to check out, you know, because I do like to see the different ways that people are raising their kids today. I think that in parenting, especially in this day and age, there's a lot of missing parts. like people are letting their kids roam free and do things that when we were brought up, we would never imagine allowed to do. So, like for instance, children in middle school, high school, I've seen TikToks of children that had tattoos, and in my upbringing, I was raised in the South. That was completely different. But now, like, there's a lot of parents that are letting their children get tattoos. There's parents who let their children drink alcohol as long as it's in the house with them. Like, there's different parenting styles. I think these shows are really interesting to show us the different that people have. And Heather, don't you watch Sister Wives, right? And I think that they're having some issues with their children as well, rebelling, and as they got older, realizing that their lifestyles weren't necessarily normal. And some of the children aren't speaking to the dad, and there's like a lot of issues going back and forth, especially with their relationships falling apart. We've seen that just because they're raising their children in their religion or doing it a certain way, it doesn't have a good lasting impact on the children in the long run.
Well, I watch Sister Wives. I've always watched Sister Wives from the very first, episode. And talking about raising your children strict and in different religions, like the Duggar family. What was it, 19 kids and counting? I watched that, and then seeing all that, how it come to things that were actually happening behind the cameras. The Sister Wives, things that were actually happening behind the cameras. So it does. I mean, it's hard to judge people or really say where they're coming from because you don't know. You only see what we're allowed to be able to see on TV, but you don't really know what goes on behind cameras. Like, I know this is a whole different podcast about the Duggar family. That can be just one podcast by itself. But to learn the things that was being allowed and the things that were happening that we were not able to see because we seen that they were a loving family. They loved each other, and it was all a big lie. So, and then now seeing their children, coming and telling the truth, writing books and really saying exactly what happened, it's like, oh, wow. And Sister Wives, in the beginning, they were this one happy family, raising each other's children, being there for each other. But after the seasons, kept going and going, that's when we started finding out the truth about actually what happens behind closed doors and when the cameras aren't running.
Yeah. You're right. We're sold a story. We're sold a happy family story on a lot of these shows, and then once
we knew the Sister Wives were going to go left because the only reason why the children felt the way they did was because he never referred to them as his kids when it was convenient. Like, he always would say Robin's kids instead of saying mine and Robin's kids, or mine and Mary's daughter, or mine and Christine's kids, or whatever. Like, he always said Christine's kids, Mary's kids. I always found that to be weird. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's their kids, but it's your kids with them. So I think that the children just kind of grew up and they looked at him for who he was. He thought that he was going to get to the stairway of heaven by having all these extra wives and this big family and everything through his religion. When he realizes now, when you fast forward in life, that he don't act like he even once said, he was just collecting people. And now that the kids are older and they kind of can see him for who he is, he was a really crappy dad. He's never there, and he was more worried about the wives and what it made him look like than actually being there for any of his kids. And I think that they're a little different, even though they have like a unique living situation, than the Platt family, because theirs, they have, 8, 9 kids, whatever. They live in the same household, but their way was just, they were were strict. You know, there's like my way or the highway. They had, you know, just one mom, one dad, and then she just decided that in life, everything that she stood for, she was going to just change. She didn't want to be married to her husband Barry anymore. She wanted to pursue her. She opened a dance studio. She wanted to pursue that some more. It's kind of like midlife crisis situation where she was like turning into her mom, because we know that she just recently got arrested for DUI. Her mom was an alcoholic. So what she was trying so hard to keep her children from, she was turning into. So
But see, that's the thing, you know, even grown-ups, you know, they try their best to follow in the footsteps of their parents. And sooner or later, you turn it, whether you want to or not. You know, you trying to be so strict on yourself and on your children, you turn into your parents, not realizing that you do it when you're doing it. But if you stand back and look at how your how your lifestyle is, or things that you're doing, you actually turn into your parents. And then that makes you look like a huge hypocrite.
Oh, we run out of time. We ran out of time this week, so we're going to come back next week, and we're going to talk about some more pop culture stuff. Thank you so much to my co-hosts, DeeDee Casteel, for joining us. Make sure you're following everyone in this video, me at George Mossey, all social media platforms, georgemossey.com. Anywhere you get your podcast, type in George Mossey Show. Make sure you're following me and Heather as well. Thank you guys so much for joining us for episode 3 of the Pop Culture Podcast. We'll be back actually. So for the new season of 90 Day Fiancé, you guys are watching that, and we're going to talk about that as well. Thank you guys so much. We'll talk to everyone soon.
Bye.
bye.
Bye, guys.